Now, let me brief the afternoon sessions. We'll have plenty of paper presentations, so we have to be serious on timekeeping. And then there are some presenters here physically, and then virtually by video conference, there are also presenters from various universities. Question and answer sessions also entertained in the middle. So now I call upon to present accordingly Dr. Getachew Diriba, Senior Advisor at the Ministry of Agriculture. His topic around animals in sustainable food systems. Then we'll go to directly fly to Ohio State University. Professor Wanderson Ghebreyesus will stay us on virtually. And then accordingly, these schedules will continue for 2 days. I wish you have a joyful and fruitful time with you. Thank you very much, Dr. Getachew. It's your time, please.
Good afternoon. It's already in the afternoon. Excellencies, guests of honors, esteemed colleagues, fellow Jubilee members, invited guests, and friends. It is my distinct honor to speak to you on this special occasion of your Jubilee anniversary. And I'd like to congratulate you, like all others who spoke before me. And from that very humble beginning 50 years ago, what you have been able to achieve, how much you have been able to cover throughout Ethiopia, is indeed a noteworthy and amazing job. Through the roll call that you have done, how many institutions, research, vet facilities has emerged over the last 50 years? Congratulations. Now, obviously, a lot remains. I hope you agree with me that this is not a moment for complacency. You should celebrate, but with modesty. What I want to speak to you, you are part of a bigger universe. And the food system is what I want to speak to you as honestly as possible, that we need to move forward. So I have 15 minutes. I just want to cover a few important issues. Food system is such a vast area, complex arena, and I would require someone with a much better caliber than me to deliver it in 15 minutes. I am not, so I will ask for an apology if it is incomplete, because it's only 15 minutes. So 4 agenda items: embracing the Industrial Revolution, the holistic approach, how do we do differently, and some concluding remarks. So, as you recall, as you could see today, we are still using the ox plow. We are still experiencing the traditional ancient animal rearing. It doesn't give us any pleasure at all to talk about all of this. The question of why we have stayed out of the Industrial Revolution, the marvels of new technologies, the 20th, the 17th, 18th century, requires a different kind of inquiry. But for me today, what is it that we could do collectively going forward? The time has changed, and I think it is important to recognize the full-scale utilization of the Hammer-Bosch innovation that brought fertilizer, the combustion engine tractors and combine harvesters, the full suite of biotechnology, plant genetics, human and animal health, and many more advances are awaiting for us to explore and exploit it. It's important to footnote that the British Agricultural Revolution, some 300 years ago, brought a marvel, which actually happened in tandem with the emergence of Industrial Revolution. What we are grappling with today, 300 years later, the enclosure movement, which is the consolidation, the cluster farming we do, was open to all of us 300 years ago. The crop rotation, selective breeding, mechanization, such as the Jethro tools, seed drilling, these were open and developed 300 years ago. We are using the broadcast today, and I think this is the beginning of understanding the food systems. So, in understanding where we want to go, the beginning, understanding the beginning, where we have defaulted, is important to recognize. It is an honest conversation. Yes, we have made a lot of strides, a lot of progress. We should recognize them. But where we are, it is inadequate. And that is why a holistic and integrated framework is needed. And that's why I am speaking to you. And I took the responsibility, the pleasure to talk to you as a fellow Ethiopian, because we need to change the practice. So I will focus on what it takes for us collectively to transform the food system. By the way, let me ask you, is there anyone in the room who would claim that they have nothing to do with food? Please raise hands. That means all of you and all of us, we have to eat. That eating begins either with farming, trading, moving, and all the rest of it. So I think that is the most important thing. Through that question, it means that it requires everyone. If the Ministry of Agriculture claims that they are the ones who are responsible, it is wrong. I'm sitting in the Ministry of Agriculture and fully understanding that the production of food involves everybody, every citizen, that I will explain to you later on. So understanding food system as a holistic, complex activities involving the value chain of production, processing, transportation, and consumption of food. It's not just producing at some cost, but it should also be sustainable. Reduction of food losses, how food is produced, it affects the natural environment, the impact of food on individual, national, and the nutritional health of all of us. And also remember, food is a weapon. Don't see it simply. It is a national sovereignty. National sovereignty is a twin image of food sovereignty. I could speak for days on this, but simply stated, you cannot achieve national sovereignty if you don't achieve your food sovereignty. Simply stated, from food point of view, it is the dignity of citizens, freedom from hunger, and the degradation of hunger. So it is profound and profoundly affects all of us. And also, food is politics. We typically forget that it is the science of plant, the science of animal, the science of nature. True, but beyond, it is also politics. It is the politics that manages how we do things. So I will speak slightly in a more different tone as a governance arrangement. So you understand how complex this is. You understand how animal comes into this. You understand how veterinary service is part of the whole equation. You have to look to others to understand what you are doing. One thing that really captures me from our international system, the global equation, food systems is about people, as I said, ending poverty and hunger in all their forms and dimensions to ensure that all human beings can fulfill their potential in dignity, in equality, and a healthy environment. Many of the Sustainable Development Goals are enshrined in here. Second, food system is about the planet, the sustainability issue I talked about earlier. It is protect the planet from degradation, including through sustainable consumption and production, and sustainably managing its natural resources and taking urgent action on climate change. This is important. 3, it is about creating prosperity. We don't have to stick in saving lives, keeping people alive. We must move from that architecture. We must enable and create wealth and prosperity. We should also create partnership and create peace. And obviously, I have a feeling of chill when I talk about peace here in Ethiopia. We need to live with peace with each other to achieve sustainable food system transformation. The other thing is, if you could please put the PowerPoint one behind, please. You are a little bit too fast from, yes, on that one. Thank you. The slide I'm showing you, I think we can all speak in our dreams, in our sleeps. We have so many problems. The starting point in designing the Ethiopian food system transformation was to understand what was really the binding constraints. We identified 18 of them, classified into what we call in the United Nations Food System Summit into 5 action areas. 1, from ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all, there are 3 binding constraints that we identified: low availability and affordability of nutrient-dense food, lack of food safety management infrastructure, lack of food fortification, processing, and packaging. 2, shift to sustainable consumption patterns, low dietary diversity, especially among infants, children, and mothers. Chronic stunting, is extreme, that 39% of Ethiopia's children are stunting. You know what? It is not just a number. It is a lifetime intellectual disability, if you like. So we are losing generation. The cost to the society, the cost to all of us is enormous. 3, boost nature positive production. What are the binding constraints? Lack of access to agricultural inputs and technologies. Every farmer will tell you this. Lack of access to agricultural, rural financial services. Ask every corner. Ethiopians will tell you that. Soil depletion, the acid soil and many problems. Lack of adoption of agroecological practices. Weak land ownership, management and infrastructure. You know all of that. 4, advanced equitable livelihoods enshrined in the weak market linkages, limited value addition and processing capacity, high post-harvest losses, weak institutional support. 5, build resilience to shocks and stresses, limited climate adaptation and resilience, the need for integrated risk and crisis management system, the need for a universal food access, especially vulnerable population. So I think this is nothing new to you, nothing new to us. But why the new question is why we simply live with it. That's the question. So I think given the time, we need to resolve all of this. And I'm telling the story that what we have gone through the last 3.5 years in the Ethiopian food system journey is a soul searching. What would it take for us as Ethiopians to innovate, to make differently, to change the pattern in which we are living in, to say no to poverty, to say no to the degradation of hunger? How do we resolve them? And I think a lot of Ethiopian colleagues and our international partners also came, told us what we need to do. So 24 game-changing solutions clusters into 7. I will do that, thank you. So I think there are enough material. At some point, I'll leave with you later on that you need to read. So the 24 game-changing solutions addressing those 18 problems that I mentioned to you. So what do we do differently? I think the Ethiopian government must commit. At the federal level, we have established an interministerial steering committee consisting of 15 ministers. At the regional level, it is ongoing. Regions must establish similar things. Our development partners must reorganize and do similar things. So 3 pillars of governance. The other thing, if you could please continue. The other thing that we have to do differently is that change is not just the public sector change. It is the whole society. It is you, the innovators, the scientists, and all professional groups must be involved to make a difference. So we need to socialize as I'm doing now. You have to take the message home and ask ourselves, ask our fellow Ethiopians to do differently. You will hear from us at some point in the radio, public discourses, to engage the whole of Ethiopians, to demand for change, to articulate, accelerate the changes that we need. So we have done quite a bit, if you please go on. In terms of cluster farming, we have seen results, policy reform, the agricultural and rural development policy, the land reform policy. These are good starting points. We need to continue to engage. The wheat initiatives, it has done a miracle, but we need to continue to engage at a higher level, engage and articulate to involve all Ethiopians. The green legacy is making significant impact, but we need to protect the existing trees through rural electrification. Yelema Trufat that you all are aware. We need to invest in critical areas. We need to invest in fertilizer, in acid soil treatment, in livestock-related investment, in like animal feed, hatcheries, incubators, in mechanization, and agro-processing, supply chain management. These are vast areas that we have neglected for so long that we need to move on. Finally, as I have shown you above, Ethiopia is making progress. However, we still need to make important steps urgently and collectively. We must transform our food system at speed and at scale because of climate change impact, food safety issues, access to nutrition and nutritious food. We cannot afford to lose the entire generation and successive generation through stunting. Veterinary science is critical, as you all are aware. I don't need to preach to you. Sustainable resilience are our critical component that as we move forward. Our vision for the Ethiopian food system is more inclusive, equitable, capable of providing healthy, nutritious food for all. We must continue to undertake practical research, pragmatic policy action, engage the private sector. It's critical that private sector must engage. I call on all stakeholders, fellow members, policy makers, researchers, and all of us to engage and help transform the food system. Once again, I congratulate you on your 50th anniversary. Participate actively in transforming the Ethiopian food system, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Getachew Diriba, for your nice presentation, useful presentation for the 50 years of the Ethiopian Veterinary Association celebration. Dr. Getachew Diriba informed us that we all are food system. He said food system is politics. And we veterinarians, we are weak in politics. That's why we fail to defend the Ministry of Livestock Development and Fishery to stay in its position. But now, again, the government recognized and gave us the Lemat Trufat program. You are right. So food system is governance. Dr. Getachew told us, food system, if it is governance, food system is also livestock. If food system is livestock, then food system is veterinary medicine. The contribution of veterinary medicine in the food system is immense. I think this document will help us to craft our the next 50 years, the Ethiopian Veterinary Services Program in the future. Thank you, Dr. Getachew Diriba. Next to this, advise me program, I think we will have a video or a video conference until the organizers set up that one. because we are celebrating 50 years of journey of Ethiopian Veterinary Association. Let me, along our 50 years, there are some jokes, some important tales. If we count them, they are all giving meaning. Let me say in Amharic, የእንስሳት ሐኪሞች በብዙ ጉዟችን አንዳንዶች አስተዳዳሪዎች ነበሩ፣ አንዳንዶች የከተማ ከንቲባም እንደነበሩ እንሰማለን። እና አንድ ቀልድ ልነግራችሁ ፈልጌ ነው። አንድ ወቅት ከመካከላችን ያሉ እኔ ሰምቼ ነው የተባለውን ነው የምሰማው የምነግራችሁ። ዶክተር አለሙ አበበ የአዲስ አበባ ከተማ ከንቲባ ነበሩ እና አብረዋቸው ሲሰሩ የነበሩት ፕሮፌሽናቸው ምን እንደሆነ አያውቁም። እና አንዱ ተቀናቃይ ሊሆን ይችላል አላውቅም፣ የእንስሳት ሐኪም መሆናቸውን አንደርማይን አደረገና ስልክ ይደውላል። ዶክተር አለሙ፣ አቤት። ለካ የእንስሳት ሐኪም ነህ? አዎ። ምን ነው አመመህ እንዴ? ምን ልርዳህ አሉት ይባላል። So this is our keynote address under the theme of One Health, One Welfare, and One Planet, which is equivalent to food system. Then the next speaker will be, are you okay? The next speaker will be Professor Wendosen Gabriel. Who is he? Oh, sorry. All right. The next speaker will be Dr. Rebecca Gracia Pinali. Sorry for the pronunciation. I welcome Dr. Rebecca, who will give us a keynote address. He is the founder and CEO of One Welfare. This is a One Welfare session. So, Dr. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Sir, good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
please.
you. And can you see the slides? I can't see them, so I will speak and I will ask for next slide as we come. So yeah, thank you. And it's a pleasure for me to be with all of you today in your celebration. I did get like a golden jacket to celebrate with all of you your golden jubilee. And as we are running quite late, I will be quite brief today. So if we go to our next slide, please. I prepare a birthday card to your veterinary association to say happy golden jubilee to you all. And I'm really pleased that you've achieved this strive. I think it's great and it's really important for veterinary associations and professionals to have the recognition and celebration that we deserved as a fellow veterinarian. So if we go to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you all today about the One Welfare approach, and you will hear after about One Health, so I won't cover that. One Welfare is a complementary approach to One Health with a focus on animal welfare. And it's an important concept because it captures and gives prominence to the area that many times get lost when we talk about health. So it is very important to actually ensure that we recognize the importance of animal welfare. And I hope through my brief talk, I can give you a highlight of why this is important. If we go to the next slide, I would like to make very clear that One Welfare is not the same as animal welfare. Animal welfare is a science and animal welfare is a pillar of One Welfare. So we need to understand and have animal welfare to be able to build upon. And if we think of the 5 freedoms and the 5 domains, we can think of health as the freedom for animals to have freedom from pain, injury, and disease, and to monitor this through prevention and rapid diagnosis and treatment. And really, how does this build into One Health is by actually ensuring that animals have good health, this improves their welfare, their well-being, and with better welfare also animals have better immune systems. And because of this, animals will be less likely to be sick, to have disease. They will need less antibiotics, less treatment, and overall it will help to improve issues such as antimicrobial resistance, which is affecting the welfare and health of people as well. It also means that animals that are sick or in pain may behave in different ways, and this might make different the way we work with them, we handle them, etc. So it's also important to preserve their health because they will behave in a better way, they will improve the working conditions as well for veterinarians and for everyone that works with them. If we go to the next slide, all of this is captured on the One Welfare Framework, and we have no time today to go through it. The framework has 5 different sections that cover the different aspects of how animal welfare connects to the welfare of people and the environment. And these go all the way from how the abuse of animals can be linked to the abuse of people, and I'm sure you know very well this. And the same, if there is a lack of food, for example, as the earlier speaker was mentioning, this would likely affect everybody, not just one of the segments. So it's very important to take all of this into account. And if we go to the next slide, I will just go through a few examples, which I think is the best in the brief time we can. I think it's important to look at animals as one sentient being, and the health and welfare of animals go hand in hand. We don't look at an animal and see their health and then look at the same animal and see their welfare. We can do checks on these, but the animal is a whole. The health and the welfare of these animals goes together, and it is very important to take this into account. So if we go to the next slide, we also need to think how animal welfare and human well-being go hand in hand. And I put here 2 graphs looking a little bit at data, which is something vets like, okay? So if we look at data here, we have 2 graphs, and this is data from the US, from a paper that reports the reports on animal control abuse and welfare problems reported to authorities in the US. And next to it on the right, we have a graph that also shows the domestic violence reports reported in the same area. And if you look at the 2 graphs, they look fairly similar, right? So it is a very interesting way of seeing how the welfare of animals and those animals that are being mistreated and abused has a correlation and a similarity to the welfare of these people that is suffering from domestic violence and is being abused as well. So I think it's a very telling graph and a very telling data collection that shows how this connection between the welfare of people and animals is not just something that is theoretical, but it's also that we can show in practice through data collection and informed science. If we go to the next slide, I would like to go to something quite simple, which is animal handling. When we think about animal handling, animals can be managed and treated and restrained in many different ways. And it is very important to actually remember, and as veterinarians, to remind everybody why using good animal welfare to handle animals is super important, not just for the animals, but also for us, for the vets that are working with them, and for the people that works with them. And if you see, I adapted this graph to very briefly show how animals interconnect and interact with the people that works with them. And this is all linked to a number of different areas, such as the attitudes of the person working with these animals. Is it been treating them calmly? Is it been aggressive? Is it shouting? Is it gentle? All of this is going to have an impact on the behavior of these animals. Are they going to be friendly? Are they going to work with us? Are they going to come with us? Or are they going to fight and try to escape and make it very difficult to work with them? These behaviors can actually link to behaviors on people and animals as well. So it can lead to fear on the animal, but also fear on the people of an animal that is aggressive and can harm us. So animal welfare and the handling of animals in a welfare-friendly way is really helpful because it helps us to have a better relationship with this animal, a much better experience, and is making our well-being at all. And I'm sure many of you vets in the room might have suffered from animals that are not happy to be restrained or handled in particular ways, and that makes our work much harder. So it's very important to remind this, and all of this comes linked together with education, training, information on how best to restrain these animals, how to handle them, how these animals behave and respond to us. So something very important, something quite simple, animal handling, but something that is super important we as vets continue championing. And also mindful of the environment. So One Welfare is not just animals and people, it's also the environment, and the facilities we have to handle these animals or to restrain them are key and very important to help us in our work. So having a good environment and good tools are also good for the welfare of animals and for our own well-being. If we go to the next slide, I would like to finish with an example on the impacts of antimicrobial resistance, which I'm very much aware are discussed in the context of One Health a lot. And there is a very clear reason for this, is impacting the health of people, is finding it hard to actually address bacterial infections. And you can see here a graph from a recent report in the UK that shows the impacts of infections on number of deaths in the year 2019. And you can see that bacterial infection here is one of the highest causes of death, above cancer, harm, Alzheimer's, respiratory infection, and other diseases, including a stroke. So it's very important to actually ensure that antimicrobial resistance is tackled. I was very interested on this part of the report that said there has been a downward trend over monitoring globally over the past 6 years. However, this 8th report that was published this year shows a 2% increase in the global analysis. And that's something that we as veterinarians need to look at very closely. The report actually stated that within Africa, there was a 179% rise during this period, which is very, very high, whilst in other countries it has decreased. On the global scale, this is not making a huge impact because, as you know much better than me, the way that farming and livestock keeping works in Africa is not at the scale that is happening in other countries. And I've got a nice picture from Kenya showing the amount of space these animals are enjoying together with a shepherd. But it is something that needs to be watched. And what is the link here with One Welfare? Why am I speaking about antimicrobial resistance? Well, animal welfare is very important because it has an impact on the immune system of animals. If the immune system is better, these animals are going to be less likely to become sick, and they are going to need less treatments. So for the veterinary profession, it's very important to first understand this, and second, to be able to communicate the importance of animal welfare improvements in the global scale. So it's not just about health, but it's also as to how we make other steps available to ensure that we have a holistic approach, as we were hearing earlier, to ensure that we have a holistic approach, and as veterinarians we champion both health and welfare to ensure that we tackle global challenges in the best possible way for everybody. My final remarks are quite simple. It's important for veterinary professionals to recognize, study, and work with respect of the links of animal welfare, human welfare, and the environment. This is key in the context of public health and animal production and animal keeping overall. I've not discussed wildlife, but it also applies to them. We must do what we can as veterinarians to encourage partnerships and to work with other professionals to have a One Health, One Welfare, One Planet approach, and work with producers, with social services, with public health, with other authorities to maximize the social benefits for everybody. And overall, integrating animal welfare represents a step forward for everybody on the implementation of welfare standards and policies, but also on the improvements that everybody can achieve from them. So I thank you all very much for inviting me. I hope you have a great celebration, and I will be happy to take a short question hour. If not, I'm apologizing because I will have to leave before the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for your speech on One Fail mission. And it was useful for the session. One Welfare, animal welfare, and sometimes veterinarians' welfare is very important. The next speaker, if we are ready. The next keynote speech will be given by Professor Wendosen Gabreyes from Ohio State University. Professor Wendosen, if you can hear me, now the session is yours for 15 minutes. Thank you. ፕሮፌሰር ወንዶሰን እስኪመጣ ድረስ አንድ ደግሞ ትንሽ ነገር ላጫውታችሁ። የእንስሳት ሐኪሞች ብዙ ጊዜ ወደ ፓስቶራል ኤሪያ ስንሄድ ኮሚኒኬሽን ስትራቴጂያችን ማተር ያደርጋልና የሆኑ የእንስሳት ሐኪሞች የደም ናሙና ለመውሰድ ፓስቶራል ኤሪያ ላይ ይሄዳሉ እና አርብቶ አደሩ አይ ከላሜ መወዳት ላም ነች፣ ከዚች ላም ምንም አይነት ደም አትወስድም ብሎ ይከለክለዋል እና የእንስሳት ሐኪሙ ተበሳጭቶ ሊመለስ ሲል አስተባባሪው ያን አካባቢ የሚያስተባብረው ቆይ አንተም አትሂድ እኔ መፍትሄ እሰጣለሁ አለው። ከዛ የእንስሳውን ባለቤቶች ለብቻቸው ወስዶ ትንሽ አረፍተ ነገር ተናግሮ ተመለሰና ከዛ ሰዎቹ ሁሉም ከኔ ላም ውሰድ ሽሚያ ገቡ። ከዛ መጣና ዶክተር እንዴ ምን ብላቸው ነው እንደዚህ ቅድም ለእኔም ቢያሉ ለአንተ እሺ ብለው ይህን ያህል የሚሽቀዳደሙት አለ። አይ ዝም ብለህ ደምህን ውሰድ፣ ምን እንዳልኳቸው በኋላ እነግርሃለሁ አለው። በኋላ ደሙን ከወሰደ በኋላ ምን እንዳልኳቸው ታውቃለህ አለው። ይሄ ሰውዬ መድኃኒት ይዞ ነው የመጣው። መድኃኒቱ በደም ስር ወደ ውስጥ ሲገባ ትርፉ ደም ይወጣል። ስለዚህ በሲሪንጅ ቀርቶ ይዞ ሄዶ መርምሮ ተመልሶ ደግሞ ይዞ ይመጣል ብሎ ስላላቸው ነው አሁን እሽቅድምድም የነበረው። እና ፓስቶራሊስቶችም አርብቶ አደሮችም ሬሊ ዲግሪ የሌላቸው ግን ትልቅ ሐኪሞች ናቸው። እስኪ ለአርብቶ አደሮች አንድ ጊዜ ስሜታችሁን ግለጽልኝ። ስለዚህ አሁን ፕሮፌሰር ወንዶሰን እስኪመጣ ነው እችን ያካፈልኳችሁ። ፕሮፌሰር ወንዶሰን if you can hear me. Next presenter. Okay. Sometimes, we have to work with technologies. Until Professor Wendosen from Ohio University come into the picture, I think the next presentation will be One Planet session. So, One Planet mission will be presented by the founder and CEO of One Planet, Mr. Puran Desai.
Mr. Puran, for accepting our request of the Ethiopian Veterinary Association to share your ambition, your vision at our 50th anniversary. Please introduce yourself and how your work inspired the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, thank you very much to the Veterinary Association for inviting me to join you on this great occasion. Yes, my name is Puran Desai. I've been working in sustainability for about 35 years or so now, but my background is actually in neuroscience and medical sciences. So I studied medical sciences at Oxford. I was in neuroscience research. Then I went into medical school at Cambridge.
Right.
In fact, I only did a couple of years. So I did finish my medical training and co-founded an environmental organization called Bioregional in 1994. And with colleagues set up a couple of sustainable forestry businesses, a couple of organic farms, a couple of recycling businesses. I needed new offices, so we ended up building the world's first zero carbon urban village development called BedZ in South London, which was 100 homes and about 2,000 square meters of community and commercial space. So I lived there for 18 years, worked there for 18 years. I coined the term One Planet Living. How can we lead happy, healthy lives within the environmental resources of our one planet, with 10 very simple, universal, intuitive guiding principles for sustainability. So those were from health and happiness, culture and community, equity and local economy, through to zero carbon and zero waste. And we applied those 10 principles around the world across all sectors. So we worked with manufacturing companies, we worked with retailers, we worked with real estate developers. So I led teams writing sustainability strategies for about $30 billion of zero carbon development around the world. Everything from tiny homes in Australia, new quarters of cities in the Middle East, settlements in West Coast America, landscape scale conservation and development across Africa, the extension to Disneyland Paris as well. So a whole One Planet resort, which is Europe's largest swimming complex, all geothermally heated, 1,000 holiday apartments run on renewable energy. More protected species after development than before development. So these projects, very inspiring projects. We also wrote the sustainability strategy for the London 2012 Olympics. So that was called the One Planet Games. And my colleagues then teamed up with the Colombian government in 2011, brought together all these inspiring projects and started a process which ended up in the UN adopting, all member states adopting the UN Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. So I'm very proud that 10 One Planet Living principles, which I led on creating, ended up inspiring and being the basis for the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I think the reason for that was we created a universal, holistic framework. And so we have to see the big picture. So that we can see how our own small actions can come together to create something which is more than the sum of the parts, that we can all see how our small actions can come together to really create a sustainable future or regenerative future for us.
Very good. Well, that's really great and inspiring. I'm sure the audience will be inspired by your initiative. Why have you now built oneplanet.com?
So this is a very interesting question. We were looking at how could we scale One Planet Living and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and how could we bring a different way of thinking? So it's taken me on a very long journey. I've had to unlearn everything I learned at school, unlearn everything I learned at Oxford University, unlearn everything I'd learned through Cambridge, unlearn everything I had learned over my working life. Because it turns out that there are two very different ways of processing information. And those two different ways of processing information are represented with the two different halves of our brain. So this is the work of probably the greatest thinker of our time, called Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He's a psychiatrist, neuroscientist, philosopher. But we've made a massive mistake in European culture, which of course has become global culture, in that we see the whole world in terms of its parts. And we think the more we know about the detail of something, the better we are at managing the whole. And that turns out to be a incomplete and problematic relationship with reality. So the whole scientific reductionist materialist paradigm is fundamentally problematic, because actually ultimately the world is totally interconnected, and it's one living organism. Our planet, and in fact probably the universe, is one whole living organism. And all the time we divide it into its parts, we are not dealing with the ultimate truth of existence. So we have to see things as very interconnected, and that uses a completely different part of the brain. So that uses the right half of our brain, not the left half of our brain. So we have spent 300 years in say the European Enlightenment, if you like to call it, focusing on words, numbers, but the ultimate reality is beyond words and numbers. And this, for example, expresses itself even in how we deal with medical issues. So my background's in medical sciences, so now we realize that 80% of medical spending in the UK medical system actually is avoidable. That 80% of all disease in the UK is now primarily caused by or determined by the diets we eat, the lifestyles we have, whether we have a clean environment or not. So we have to now start thinking very holistically, and we have to think about how do we promote healthy ways of living, and ways in which we can live healthily as individuals, healthily as communities, healthily as whole ecosystems, and ultimately healthily as a whole planet. So we have to move away from medical intervention as our primary tool to actually promotion of health. And promotion of health and treatment of disease are two things which have very little crossover. And we have to see ourselves as part of a whole living organism, a whole living planet, and that's very different. And that's why we've ended up building the oneplanet.com platform. We use very different database technology. They're two fundamentally different types of databases. The SQL type databases, where everything is held in separate cells like an Excel spreadsheet. And then there are these what are technically known as graph databases or network databases, where all the information is held on the basis of its interconnectedness. And in fact, the two languages you require to process that information is completely different. And so it's like the two halves of our brain. One part of the brain sees everything as separate parts, the other sees everything as an interconnected whole. And so we have created oneplanet.com as a technology which enables us to understand interconnectedness and then collaborate around what we call shared outcomes and coalesce to a planet regenerating state. And I talk about a planet regenerating state because actually the planet is half as alive as it was 300 years ago. So if we weigh the amount of living matter on the planet, there's half as much as there was 300 years ago. So our challenge is now to regenerate our planet and to regenerate it in a way which promotes our health and the resilience, our health resilience. It promotes the resilience of our communities. It promotes the resilience of our economy locally. And I think we'll have to move to very much more local economies. We have to move away from a globalized economy to a much more local economy, and in ways which generate and regenerate our local ecosystems and ways which then ultimately regenerate our planet. So I think it's a very big challenge. I like to say that we have 10 years to transform ourselves from a consumer society, which has consumed half of all living matter on the planet, to a regenerator society or even a regenerator species. So we have to think of ourselves very differently in terms of our place on this planet, and we have to reassess the science that we've been brought up on, start looking at the latest science in terms of system science, life science, which now is very clearly telling us that systems do not just arise from the parts. Whole systems determine how parts behave. Parts don't just determine how systems behave. So there's a whole flow of information which I think we can talk about in terms of system science and move this away from our obsession with reductionist science. So I think we're on the verge of a massive paradigm shift in terms of how we have to start seeing the world and how we start working with the rest of nature.
Very good. I think I am learning. I'm sure my audience will be also learning. That is mission completed. When we set one health, one welfare, one planet as our theme for the next 50 years, I am sure the way we educate our professionals, the way we also re-engineer our veterinary services, our policies should be revised in a way that we go out of our silos and work with, as you say, systems that demand system change. And you said. You say now that you have to build resilient, regenerative communities. And why and how do you say how do this? Because building resilient, regenerative communities from local as well as international is challenging because of the pressure of globalization.
Yes, I think, Božidar, this is a very interesting question. I think we are moving away from globalization already. We're seeing protectionism come into play. So countries are starting, we're seeing, say, trade wars between the US and China. We are seeing local communities all around the world very undermined by globalization. So we see it creating more and more social inequality. And certainly in the UK, we are finding that there are fewer and fewer very rich people, and most people are struggling to survive. We have a massive mental health crisis in the UK, particularly amongst young people. I don't know what it's like in Ethiopia, but in the UK now, about 1/3 of all young people 16 to 24 years in the UK are not in education and not in employment. And a big cause of that is a mental health crisis. So young people are struggling with their mental health for all sorts of reasons, because we have created a society which, on the one hand tells them they're not good enough. When we try, for example, I would say all our advertising, all our social media is actually trying to sell people, and particularly young people, things. But you sell people things by telling them that their life is not good enough. That they're not good enough. They need to buy something new to be good and to be better. So the whole consumer society that we've created is actually creating a huge amount of mental ill health as well. And so we're seeing a mental health crisis. Of course, we are seeing a climate crisis. So around the world, we're all getting hit by, climate disasters. Here in the UK, we had 18 months of the wettest weather on record. So our crops are down 25%. And 70% of our farmers don't think they will survive the next 18 months. We have our Department for the Environment saying that they are expecting a collapse of our total food and farming systems for environmental reasons, climate reasons within 10 years. So we're hitting a agricultural crisis, a farming crisis. We have a social crisis. We had riots in the UK. We have huge amounts of debt. Of course, we have political instability. Around the world, we're seeing water problems. We're seeing how extreme flooding is making homes uninsurable. There's one welfare, and that is ultimately one planet.
I'm sure that is. Ethiopia is not immune to the crisis. You have taken UK as an example and reflected on. We have also social crisis, ecological crisis, climate crisis, natural shocks, which affect the climate, the environment, and then the life on the planet, the animals, and then human. I'm sure we learn as a country, as a nation, from the initiatives you started to promote resilient, regenerative communities. Now let's talk about our profession, where the veterinary profession stands in this initiative. How can the veterinary profession be part of creating resilient, regenerative communities?
So of course, veterinary profession is going to be very important. Look, I almost studied veterinary science. I was very close to applying for veterinary science because I have a love of and started love of nature, love of animals. I was born in London, but first 3 years brought up in Africa, in Malawi. And I think a lot of people brought up in Africa end up with a love of nature. We had a big garden, lots of animals in the garden, lots of dogs, and I think that love of the rest of nature, because we are part of nature, I think is something which veterinary surgeons have, of course, and I think that. That's going to be important. I think what veterinary surgeons are going to have to do is learn the limitations of the reductionist scientific paradigm with which we've been brought up and start seeing that actually we are part of one living planet. And that actually a reductionist view rather than a holistic view is very problematic. Of course, there'll always be need for some treatment, diseases to treat, but actually we got to look at promoting health in livestock as well, but wider nature as well. So we'll have to start with ourselves, re-educate ourselves, and I think what that will mean is, of course, look at a future where we're cutting down on the amount of livestock that we have, leaving space much more for wilderness and wildlife and rewilding, of course, which is a big movement. Because now, if we weigh mammalian biomass on the planet, 96% is humans and human livestock, and only 4% is wild animals. Now, that is a totally unbalanced planet. So I think we'll have to move to much more plant-based futures, much less livestock. I think maybe there's a place for eating smaller quantities of high-quality meat. But there's probably huge amounts of opportunity for getting involved in things like rewilding and supporting a concept of human and animal health, which is not about treating disease. It's about seeing ourselves as part of healthy systems, healthy local ecosystems, parts of healthy local economies, resilient local economies, parts of then ultimately part of a resilient, healthy, regenerative planet. So we'll have to re-educate ourselves and redirect all our professional knowledge towards resilience, to a salutogenic future, a health-generating future. And that will be very, very different from the last 50 years.
Very good. I always, at this occasion, I have invited professionals from the human health, who is also speaking, one of the keynote speakers, and also from the climate specialist, and also from Biodiversity Institute, and also, of course, veterinarians in the room. The way I think is I think we need to be in the room to formulate how we educate our next generation, how we formulate how we also work, and how everything fits together. Because nature was perfect from start. It is us, the human being, who now are, as we specialize, we move away, not coming to the room to talk and then to join the dots of our minds, our experiences.
Sorry, it's a very long discussion, but it is useful. It was useful. And then there is a burning time issue now. I think you have heard the conversation from our President, Dr. Boja Ndabu, conversation with the One Planet founder and CEO, Mr. Poran Desi. He contributed. He informed us a lot that the veterinary field is part of One Planet. So One Planet, we have only one planet for us to live, and then he gave us a very good description of that and how we can fit in that One Planet mission. The next one is about, before that, I would like the audience just to congratulate Mr. Poran Desi and our President, Dr. Boja Ndabu. And the next one is also a similar arrangement. It's one biology, one welfare, and one health. He is Professor Donald Broom, Emeritus Professor of Animal Welfare from the University of Cambridge. I think we will have a similar presentation, and organizers, you can continue showing us. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, please, we hear you.
Okay, well, firstly, congratulations on your anniversary. And it's very nice to be a part of this. And I have been in Ethiopia, and I am very pleased to have continuing contact with Ethiopia. So are you going to put up my slides, or do you want me to share the screen? Shall I share the screen?
Yeah, if you can a bit increase the volume.
Can you see my screen?
We cannot see your display.
Okay. Well, maybe you can put it up then. If you can't see it, you have this. You have the slides, so maybe you should do it. Put it there. If I can't share it.
Please, Prof.
Yeah.
You see the bottom screen. At the bottom of the screen, you see share.
Yeah. Yes, green. Yes, I did that.
Yes, first open your file and then come back to the Zoom and say share.
Yes, I've done that. Can you see now?
Have you opened your PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, it's on my screen.
Yes, then come back to the Zoom and hit the share icon.
I'm clicking on share and it's not sharing.
Okay, if you face difficulties, I think in the best interest of time, you can just present. Excuse me, noise. Yeah.
Or send the slides, yeah? Send the PowerPoint.
Oh, well, I don't seem to be able to share the screen. Can you put up my slides?
Sorry?
You have my presentation. Can you put it on the screen?
I think you didn't share as a presentation.
I sent you the presentation. You don't have it?
No. Yeah, please, Prof, you just keep on presenting. Even though we fail to see the screen, you can just present.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, now you have shared.
Oh, you can see it now.
Yes.
Good. Let's try this. Okay, you can see?
Yes, we can see.
Oh. Okay, sorry, it took
Now
so
we
long.
can see, and you have
Very
only 15 minutes, Professor.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm also going to say we need to think in a slightly different way and putting in a bit more information perhaps. So I'm going to start to say there is only one biology. That's a very simple statement. The same biological principles apply to humans and non-humans. Humans are animals. This is something which everybody in the audience knows, but even so, people often forget it, I think. And also the word animal includes all vertebrate and invertebrate animals. And in fact, almost all human biological processes occur in other species. And of course, this is the reason why we have laboratory animals experimental studies with other species. And recent research, and there's been a lot of research, especially on cognitive functioning, shows great similarities between humans and other species. So we shouldn't forget that. This is just one example of a study we did in which we showed that pigs, after just a few hours of experience with a reflecting mirror, learned what is in the mirror. They learned that what they see is on the same side as the pig and at a certain angle to it, so they were able to learn to use a mirror. And generally that's thought of as being a very sophisticated thing for any organism to do. So if humans are very similar to other species, this should change our attitudes and it should change our use of language. So for example, we shouldn't say humans and animals, we should say humans and other animals. And if we are using the word animal, we shouldn't exclude fish, insects, mollusks. We should consider all animals when we use the word animals. And also, we shouldn't use the names of animals to insult people or say they were behaving like animals. It's not very logical. Okay, so we've been talking a bit about animal welfare, and the term welfare is a word which is used for humans and all other animals, but not for inanimate objects and not for plants, which don't have a nervous system. So the welfare of an individual is its state as regards its attempts to cope with its environment. And so welfare refers to all the different coping mechanisms which we as humans have and which our livestock and companion animals have, physiological, behavioral, brain processes, including feelings, and of course responses to pathology is an important part of welfare. So feelings are mechanisms used to cope with environmental impacts on individuals, and health is the state of an individual in relation to pathology. And so health is an important part of welfare. Poor health means poor welfare, and health and feelings are both key parts of welfare. And so the state of an individual welfare includes the extent of difficulty in coping and whether there is failure to cope. And welfare varies over a range. Welfare varies from being very good, very positive, to being very poor, very negative. And animal welfare science has developed very rapidly in the last 30 or 40 years. And we now have a lot of measures of the needs of individuals and the welfare of animals of different species. And we are able to assess the magnitude of the positive and negative indicators of welfare and what is the balance in any situation. So animal welfare science has developed to a point where we really can use it now. And here are one or two examples. This is a diagram showing cortisol in sheep which were loaded onto a transport vehicle. And what happened when they were loaded was that the cortisol level went up. It was disturbing to the sheep to be loaded into the vehicle. And then it gradually dropped down over a period of a few hours. And then the vehicle is driving along a very smooth, good quality road. And then at the end of the journey, the road is twisting and turning. And at that point, the animals are disturbed again. So this is just saying cortisol in some circumstances can give you some useful information. Of course, we are using a lot of other information in assessing welfare. If you suddenly feel pain and you see there is a human example as well as a sheep and a mouse and a horse, if you suddenly feel pain, you change your face. So somebody sticks a pin into you, you change your face. And that grimace, that expression, is something which can be identified and quantified. It's just an example of something which can be measured in a very wide range of species, the same kind of measurement. Then if we are considering protecting animals, which animals should be protected? Well, I think most people would say, well, all animals to some extent, but maybe some more than others, maybe we have more duty of care for some animals than others. Sentient animals perhaps should be protected better. Sentience means having the capacity, that's the awareness and cognitive ability to have feelings. And so some kinds of animals are sentient and some are not. And of course, sentience, the capacity to have feelings, develops at a certain stage in the development of a human or a sheep. And so the individual is sentient after a certain stage of development, and it's something which also can be lost. That is, the brain can be damaged so that the individual is not sentient. The current view is that humans and all other vertebrates are sentient, and also cephalopod mollusks and decapod crustaceans. And so we should be evaluating and considering the welfare of animals, and whether or not they are sentient. But we should also be thinking of animals which are not sentient as far as welfare is concerned. Okay, now welfare is an important part of sustainability. What is sustainability about? Well, a system or procedure is sustainable if it is acceptable to the general public now, and if its expected effects are acceptable. And that's in relation to the availability of resources, the consequences of the functioning of a system or a procedure, and the morality of action. So what I'm saying is that sustainability in the end depends upon what humans will accept or will not accept. At least at the moment, that's how we have to evaluate it. So consumers exert control over how food is produced, how other things are done. So the general public, more and more now, and this is a change which has occurred a lot in the last 20 or 30 years, Sustainability is demanded in relation to travel, erecting buildings, heating systems, cooling systems, producing clothes, producing all other goods, disposal of waste, and of course producing food. But in order to understand sustainability, we have to look at all the different components of it. There are many different components of sustainability, and all of these should be considered. And this certainly fits with the ideas which have been presented by other speakers this morning. People have ideas about what's the most important aspect. A survey done in Brazil recently about food sustainability, the consumers were asked what's the most important, and they said, oh, the welfare of the farmed animals is the most important. And other people will say, well, the carbon cost or the impact on biodiversity or the effect on the people who are working or the amount of water, the amount of land, all these different things need to be taken into account. But it is an interesting change in the world that now public morality and public attitudes is having a major effect on how things are produced. If something is not produced in an acceptable way, it isn't sustainable, it won't continue, its production will decline or perhaps not continue. Now, the One Health idea emphasizes, and we've heard about it already, that in particular, pathogens often affect many species, and so thinking about a range of species is an important thing to do in order to understand the health of humans or the health of our farmed animals or companion animals or any animals. The distinction between human medicine and veterinary medicine is not a useful one, and it has actually caused some delays in progress. It hasn't been useful to do that, and we need to draw together veterinary medicine and human medicine. And we already had a mention from Rebecca Garcia of antimicrobial resistance, which I've also taken as an example of the One Health approach. Carefully controlled use of antibiotics is very valuable, even in a circumstance where there is some development of antimicrobial resistance. So we will continue to be using antimicrobials to treat disease in a therapeutic way, but we need to manage this in a better way than has been done before. A publication recently said that there are 5 million human deaths in 2019 attributable to antimicrobial resistance. And of course, there are also lots of non-human deaths because the antimicrobials, the antibiotics and other antimicrobials are not working properly. So antibiotics are used in treatment, but they have in the past been used as growth promoters. That use is something which really needs to stop. And we, I think, need in every country, we need legislation so that antibiotics are not allowed to be used for growth promotion. They can be used therapeutically and sometimes prophylactically, but they shouldn't be used for growth promotion. So what actions are needed to minimize antimicrobial resistance? I've said to you that it's important. Medical doctors and veterinarians have to work together to do this. One thing is to control the sales of antibiotics and other antimicrobials. It should be legal to sell antibiotics unless a medical doctor or veterinarian has prescribed it. That's a matter of, there should be a law. There should not be, you should not be able to buy antibiotics online. There should be penalties for uncontrolled selling. So these are important things which governments can do and very relevant to the work of the Ethiopian Veterinary Association. Then we need to educate the public. We need to educate, and when I say we, the medical and veterinary world, all people with biological knowledge, need to educate the public. Do not try to use antibiotics for non-bacterial diseases. It's obvious, but a lot of people don't understand it. Always complete the course of antibiotic treatment. Don't dispose of unused antibiotics into sewage. That is something which we know people are doing from studies of the amount of antimicrobial resistant bacteria which are present in swimming water in the sea or in lakes or rivers. that it should not be allowed to dispose of antibiotics into sewage, because that encourages the development of antimicrobial resistance. And don't allow antibiotic use for growth promotion. Again, a law which is needed in every country. And we should minimize the prophylactic use of antimicrobials. Overall, we need to reduce total use. We need to use alternatives when available. And I very much agree with Puran Desai in saying that we need to change the systems of management for humans and for non-humans to make it less likely that they will get disease. Rebecca Garcia pointed out in the One Welfare approach that immune system function is improved if welfare is good. So we should improve the welfare of people and improve the welfare of farm animals in order to minimize the extent to which we need to use antimicrobials. What food production systems are we going to have in the future? Again, we've had some useful discussion on that already in this conference. Future systems have to take account of all aspects of sustainability. And in order to do that, you need a scoring system to consider every aspect. The components of sustainability then are human welfare and ethics, welfare of production animals, amount of land which is being used, the extent to which you have some land for conservation and biodiversity preservation, the amount of water which is used, how much greenhouse gas is produced, how much pollution there is, the extent to which there is carbon sequestration, or is it being damaged by a system. So we need to know all of these different things in evaluating sustainability. We need to take account of all of them. Now, what plant resources are going to be used in the future? Well, clearly, the most important source of food for all animals in the world are plants, and in particular, the leaves of animals, the leaves of plants, which can be eaten by some animals and not very well by humans. So actually, at the moment, we are feeding grain to farm animals. That's not efficient. That's not using world resources well. We should minimize the feeding of grain to farm animals and feed it to people instead. As far as leaves are concerned, animals which can consume, since leaves are the greatest edible product in the world, and some animals can eat them and some can't, humans can't, and therefore in that case we can eat animals which are eating leaves. So mammals, birds, fish, insects which eat leaves are the most important things to produce. And that's more important than animals which eat grain. So that, I think, will, in the long run, change what people are going to eat. And it's not the way we're going at the moment, so we need to change it. So we need plant cultivation systems which are sustainable, and we don't want to have plant cultivation systems which are damaging the biodiversity of the world or directly killing animals, because a lot of plant production does kill animals. I did a study of beef production systems and found that the least sustainable beef production system was if land was degraded. Now, when I was in Ethiopia, I did see quite a lot of land which was degraded because sheep, goats, other animals were feeding on it without any control. I think we need better control, and that can be done by growing high protein producing plants, using a silvopastoral system, and plant production from a mixture of herbs and shrubs and trees is greater than from a single level pasture system. So we need to use different things to feed these herbivorous animals, which we are then going to consume, using, for example, nitrogen fixing shrubs such as Lucina, and some people in the audience will be aware of this. Here is a picture of an animal in a nice environment, but one which is actually more efficient than just letting them graze on pasture plants. So we need to move to different systems. We need to think about managing the world in a more holistic way. And this can be done with scientific studies, and we need to take account of all the scientific studies in deciding which way we want to go for the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Donald from University of Cambridge, for your diverse and very useful presentation to the 50th anniversary of the Ethiopian Veterinary Association. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now completed session 1 of the keynote address. And apology for taking few minutes of the presentations, because some of were not under our control. So with this, we might have question and answer sessions later on, but I need the advice from the organizing committee. So, Mr. President, come in and engage in, inform us something.
ምንድነው በአማርኛ መናገር ይችላል?
Yes, please.
Okay, no, I have to speak in English. I see foreigners, and we can't exclude you. At this stage, I think we thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to us. I'm just here to make one announcement. And that announcement is the nomination of the member of the board of executive board of EVA. It used to be by raising hands, but at this stage we want your exclusive participation in the nomination process. We want to use technology. We have designed a package, a link, where it asks 3 questions. The person you nominate, the affiliation of the person, which is either academia, because we want the inclusion of academia, also the service sector. I think it also says diagnostic and surveillance, private sector, our professionals in the development sector, like NGOs and the United Nations, working in the United Nations. And I think it also, you will see the category as you roll in, once you get the link. And then the third is, if you nominate a person, please tell us about the background of the person and also his passion to lead EVA into the next era. This is, the link will be available on website. The link will be available also on this Telegram. And this is the first link, but we also send you the next link. This is the nomination process, but next is the voting process. So if you nominate today, until the evening, we will collect all the nominees, and the nominees who have more frequencies will be voted tomorrow. So we will be voting tomorrow. So please nominate. Please use the link to nominate today, and also share to your colleagues to increase participation of the members. For the strength of the professional association is also part of the leadership. It is you, but also the quality and the strength of the leadership. So please get involved in the nomination process and voting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This message might need a continuous information, because everybody has to be clear on the process and procedure. Because we should be crucial and ready for the next journey of the other 50 years. You never know, we may meet again after 50 years and celebrate EVA. With this, I will leave for more information from organizing committee. I think this is a lunch time, But somebody from the organizing committee informed me that we need to give more priority for elderly and high dignitaries, just to just to give them chance to go first, and then we'll follow later on.